Hey, May, and Patreon, and subsequently YouTube, and Instagram, and everybody who's gonna see this video when I decide where I put it, which is not right now. So, hi. Happy May 2020. Let me fix my hair here a little bit because it's about to change itself, which is fine, but we have a plan today, and I just wanted to stick with the plan until we move on to the next plan. So May, I have two new decks that are quite exciting, and that are both Oracle decks. The difference between tarot decks and Oracle decks is often the structure, right? Tarot decks are a formal, I would even have to look it up myself, 78 card divination system that that are broken into 5 suits: Major Arcana, Swords, Wands, Cups, and Pentacles, right? But so it's 78 cards. I think it's 78 cards. Don't hold me to it, people. Look it up yourself. It is 78 cards. Okay. And then, but Oracle decks can have any number of cards. It doesn't matter. And they can have a different kind of structure. So I'm using the deck of character. The deck of character is a very thick deck, as you can see. And it's broken into tools, places, and characters. And I'm also using the Liminal Space Oracle deck, which is not broken into sections, but is also a very cheeky deck. And I like these decks because we are in a liminal space for most of us we're all in a liminal space, in that we're on an earth that is going through in this age and this time something unprecedented for itself, which is a slowing down and a having to capitulate to the circumstances, essentially, not to just overpower and basically oppress the circumstances. So many of us are beholden to a current future where we are limited and where the things that we would prefer to do are constricted, which is the way that most of the world lives that isn't privileged 99% of the time. But now that the privileged are also under this impetus, it creates even more limitation, right? Because it's truly a restriction when the privileged can't even get around it. And so I chose, well, let's say they chose us. These decks chose us for the May reading, and 5 cards came out while I shuffled the deck of character. And then I pulled one clarifying card from the Liminal Space Tarot that's been following me around personally, but is also a card I really love, so I look forward to sharing that. It flipped over when I was shuffling, so I know what it is, but I don't know what the deck of character cards are yet because I haven't flipped them over. All I know is that we have 1 tool, 2 characters, and 2 places. So, our first and only tool. Mirror, mirror, baby. Okay? Come on. What else can this say other than reflection? Take this time to reflect. Obviously, May is moving from Taurus to Gemini energy, from Earth to air. Gemini, being twins, is already reflective, is already involving polarity and binary and seeming equal opposites, and that's important simply because, one, we're already in that vibe. Also, astrologically, I'm not an astrologer, but I know a lot of astrologers and I've done a lot of personal reading. But astrologically speaking, May is a super retrograde month with like four planets in retrograde. I think Venus is in retrograde, Pluto's in retrograde, other motherfuckers is in retrograde, probably Jupiter, so probably some other motherfuckers. So probably Saturn. So all of these energies are causing us to look back and reflect upon our choices. If we made the right choices, if we made fair choices, not only for people who may feel a way, but for ourselves, right? Like, did I do myself justice beyond how we're accountable to other people? It's a conversation here about personal reflection for the sake of ourself, not just for the sake of making amends to other people, but to just understand what is and what is and isn't, by recognizing what truly went on, which is the reflection part, right, of the mirror. Then we have our first character. And again, I haven't seen these. I don't see them until I put them on the camera, so we're learning together. The Naked Man. I like this card, and it's actually been sort of popping up randomly in other people's readings that I do professionally, which you can totally book me for at any time, by the way. I'm working throughout this. In fact, I'm busier than ever right now. But the Naked Man is a card that I associate with vulnerability and transparency of people. Also, of course, the Emperor has no clothes, right? Like when we come into a place of honesty, whether that is by hook or by crook, right? Like whether we walk to the place of honesty or whether we just find ourselves tripped up into it. So the Naked Man is distinctively a man. The deck of character is distinct about the kind of characters that it has, whether they're androgynous, feminine, or masculine, and there's pointedness to this, as we'll see when we get to the last character, who I don't know who it is. But the Naked Man represents to me actual divine masculinity. And divine masculinity would be masculinity that is fully willing to incorporate whatever degree of androgyny and femininity that is actually relevant to that masculinity. And the answer is never none. Okay, the answer is never none because we all have these energies. We don't have a choice in being made up of these three qualities. They're just in us, so we have to acknowledge them. But the Naked Man speaks to me of just sort of what I was talking about, right? Like privilege. Privilege is, I refer to as supremacy ideation, right? Privilege in terms of words means, in terms of my word witchiness, right? Privilege comes from the etymology private law, meaning like this law only privately applies or only applies to these private citizens or these like advantaged people. And so it's a law that is privatized. It's not for the public consumption. It's a law that's given as a better advantage for other people. And so privilege is this, the private laws that apply to the rich or to the masculine or to the white or to the able-bodied or to the skinny or to the non-queer or to the non-old or to the non-young, right? I call this supremacy ideation. Supremacy ideation is I write extensively about this on Instagram and on my website, and you're more than welcome to look into that if you're curious about it. But the short and sweet of it is that supremacy ideation is the fixation and idea that only one truth can be centered, and that based on that, because only one truth can be centered, all other truths are untrue or less true. And so it creates this totalitarianism where it's like morally bombastic, where you're like, well, I know the truth, therefore you all are wrong, and anything I do is justified because I'm doing it towards the end called reality, and you're not. And so the supremacy ideation, the reason it's ideation is because existence created all of us. We all have opinions that are different, and existence has sanctioned them all because we're here already. So the point is to recognize that reality outside of the fact that there are also truths that some of us prefer overall more than others, and also that there are certain truths that apply and provide privilege to everyone as opposed to only some, right? Well, that would be the opposite of privilege. So whatever in etymology means public law rather than privilege. I will have to look that up. Poovlage. Pooblage. That is what we will call it for now. Publage, if you prefer, because you don't like poobs. Publage. So we want to figure out how we can have publage, right? So the Naked Man also speaks to me of how the construct of like cis white heteropatriarchy, which are the strongest supremacy ideations, classism in the form of capitalism, racism in the form of white supremacy, and sexism in the form of patriarchy, right? This is like the trifecta of fuckery, basically. And because they've been the most insistent, like if it was heteronormative, I mean, obviously heteronormative people have been very oppressive, but if it was like other categories, like we were more ageist than racist, then we would be talking about that. But because racist people and men and rich people get old, they can't really be more ageist than anything else because when they become that age, they start focusing on the other ideations because they no longer have the privilege of the one. So I digress, but I don't, because this is about character. So the Naked Man is about how this cis-white heteropatriarchy dissolves, and how essentially that causes us to be in a position where a lot of people are going to be going through it, vulnerability and like dissolution of the self, so ego death. Who am I in a society where that doesn't cater to me? Like, how do I live when all I've known how to do was play the game that no longer is relevant? It's like this is going to be a lot of crisis for people, as it already has been. But there's going to be a lot of coming out of the closet of our our lack of transparency. Essentially, a lot of people are just not going to be able to, whether men, non-gender conforming people, or women, or will not be able to deny or hide the reality of what they are actually dealing with, because so much of it is on the fundamental personality matrix that they're not able to hide it. It's like spilling out of every corner and crevice, right? Places we have gold mine. I like this because, you know, the wound is where the healing goes, right? So, like, you have to go to, sometimes we go to negative spaces in order to do positive things. When we go back into our personal history and we look at things that were unpreferred, unpleasant, downright oppressive, or violatory, we go there to excavate and to clean that wound so that we can go forward as more holistic and appreciative people, that we can turn our negative experiences into positive outcomes because they make us more of ourselves. So a gold mine is this place of vulnerability, the mirror, the reflection, the transparency, the vulnerability of being open and being willing to be seen, you know, being willing to be barren. I don't know why the word's not barren, but like bare, to lay things bare, essentially. And then this is where the money is. This is where the action is. This is where we are in a place of cultivation and abundance and resourcefulness, because this is the thing that keeps us from being present anyway, which is the references and the negative associations with the past, which makes us referential and makes us reductive and makes us feel as if we are walking backwards when we can never go back to where we were. Our second place is the circus, which clearly it's humanity, right? The circus is humanity. This is the arena as well. The gold mine is the community and the individuals in it. So we are each developing ourselves to become more abundant, resourceful individuals for the circus, so that we can have a first-rate circus, right? And a first-rate circus is ideally a circus where everybody, even the animals, are consenting. And you know, because they tried to let the animals free and they kept following the circus. Even when they let them free in their indigenous land, they found their way back to the circus, okay? That's a first-rate circus where everybody is there by choice, knowing that they are the freak in the show that they're playing, okay? And then last but not least, and this has to do with the fact that, you know, existence being OG is tolerant of everybody and every perspective. So, like, if that is possible in reality called all of existence, then it has to be possible in our smaller reality called humanity. There has to be a way to organize society and government and family and community that actually allows for everybody to be who they are to themselves without violating others. You know what I mean? Last but not least, our final character is the ghost. Ooh. Because we are haunted by our past. And we're haunted by it because we don't go back there and reclaim ourselves. We think we think that we are the version that we did not allow ourselves to acknowledge. And the acknowledgement of that person allows for the transparency that brings you into the gold mine of the circus, which is being who you are anyway. Doesn't matter if other people don't care for it. If it's authentic and you're doing your work of showing up to life and allowing the way it guides you to be informative and facing the reality that's in front of you and giving yourself over as much as you can to each moment, so you're leaving as little undone as possible moment to moment, allows you to have no regrets and allows you to have no anxiety, because you know every moment is the future, and so there's nothing to worry about because you're there already, now. Ad infinitum. Now, last but not least, our clarifying card from the Liminal Tarot is one of my favorite cards. It's been following me around and I love it, so let's get into it. Money, 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 bitch slots. Money, 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 bitch. And then close up, we have sevens, we've got cherries, we've got bars, we've got diamonds, we got money, money, okay? The money, the gold mine, the resource that is most valuable is who you are actually to yourself. acknowledging who that person is and being received as that person, because there's enough acknowledgement that there's nothing else to do with you but to acknowledge who you are, because that's the only thing you show up as. And eventually that means your mirror image is a reflection, and that means you actually know who you are, because if you are received the way that you believe yourself to be, it would mean that you actually have a pretty relevant notion of your identity, right? So that's where all success, all abundance, all resources, which money is, it's just a symbol for resources. That's where it is. That's where you can get that. So I strongly encourage you use this creative time of May to know more of yourself, to excavate more of your past, go to a bad place to do a good thing, bring that version of you from that idea of you from the past back to the present, and recognize you cannot go back and be that person again, nor are you beholden to that person's reality. They went through things so that you didn't have to do it. You have the luxury of judgment. You have the luxury of reflection, because versions of you before you did things that this version of you, in the light of that experience, in the light of that knowledge, would never do. So those people who went before you fell on their swords so that you could be more of yourself. And that should be true of every moment that you go forward, that you become more and more and more of yourself. So let your freak flag fly, okay? I'm from Los Angeles. That's like basically the byline on the flag. Let your freak flag fly. I don't actually have a flag, strangely. Or maybe like not. But anyways, happy May. See you guys in June. Bye.